Hello everyone, Andy Schwab here with your Northern Ag TV. Wyoming Congresswoman Hageman introduced the Protecting Agricultural Spaces Through Effective Ranching Strategies, also known as the Pasture Act, last week. Well, Hageman says this will safeguard landowners and their property adjacent to those federally leased lands from federally enforced actions related to livestock trespassing. More specifically, that bill would prohibit federal land management agencies from enforcing a trespass after permits or leases are adjusted or rescinded until the relevant land management agency constructs a fence to keep livestock out. The bill is being supported by Wyoming Farm Bureau, Wyoming Stock Growers Association, RCAF USA, and others. And speaking of news from our nation's capital, U.S. Senator Steve Daines of Montana is growing frustrated with the Farm Bill stalemate. In an interview with me last week, Daines said that the Farm Bill progress is at a standstill, which is coming at a terrible time for producers trying to plan for next year.
It's a fair and accurate statement that until this election is decided, things will be at a bit of a stalemate. But it's one of the great frustrations for so many farmers and ranchers, businesses across Montana, is the inability of Congress to get the Farm Bill passed in time. I mean, you think about farmers and ranchers and businesses are held accountable. You've got to make your payments to the bank on loans on time. You got to make your payments to the government in terms of taxes on time. Why is it that Congress then can't get the Farm Bill renewed on time? It is incredibly frustrating.
Now, Daines also noted that he is hopeful that a shift in the presidential leadership next year, with the elections a week away today. And 2 federal district courts have agreed to allow environmental groups to intervene in the litigation challenging the Bureau of Land Management's sweeping public lands rule. Judge David Barlow of the U.S. District Court of the District of Utah issued an order Wednesday allowing the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, Wilderness Society, and Conservation Lands Foundation to intervene in that June lawsuit by Utah and Wyoming. That federal lawsuit, as you may recall, argues that, among other things, the rule overhauls BLM's substantive priorities under federal law, revises existing regulations, and creates brand new land management tools. The Utah-Wyoming case is also now involving a separate lawsuit filed in July by a coalition of energy, ranching, and farming industry groups in the U.S. District Court of Wyoming. Their complaint, of course, focuses on the rule's mitigation and restoration leasing system. Well, let's take a 30-second break and see how that cattle on feed report played onto the cattle markets right after this.
From the beginning, we've worked closely with farmers. BNSF's ties to the agricultural community go back 175 years. Together, we've innovated to make the U.S. agriculture supply chain one of the most efficient and productive in the world. Our strong relationship powers BNSF still today and helps us move the nation like no one else can. At BNSF, we move the nation for you.
Friday's Cattle on Feed report was published mostly neutral. And overall, the total cattle on feed throughout the month of September was the same as last year at 11.6 million head. Now, while the 2.6 million head placed in the feedlots last month was 2% below year-ago levels, that was a little more than they expected them to be. So it did leave that market in a ho-hum manner. However, they also had a shot in the arm from the strong cash cattle markets that was boosted by the stronger box beef values. Unfortunately, the demand, though, did not fully work its way into the local auction barns, with spotty results on some of the feeder sales. For St. Aug's livestock last Friday, the high head count came from those heavy 5-weight steers with an average range of 308 to 316, while their little brothers, tipping the scales at the high end of the 400 pounds, they averaged their prices at about 337 to 345. They also saw a good test of those spring heifers, while those light 5-weight cowgirls, they averaged right at that $3 a pound, and the bulk of the heifers, they held about 30 to 35 cents back on their steer mates. And grain markets on Monday followed up Friday's sell-off with another red day, this time led lower by the outside pressure from crude oil futures, who had suffered nearly a 6% loss on the day. Wheat futures did show some of the early resilience of the overall commodity pressure, but ultimately succumbed and tumbled lower throughout the Monday trading session. Official figures also coming out on Monday's USDA's weekly crop progress report. Well, it showed Montana's winter wheat nearly 60% worse than year-ago levels, with just 17% of that winter wheat crop in the ground already considered good to excellent. Well, that's going to do it for today's Northern Ag TV. I'm Andy Schwab. Have a great rest of your day.